Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I have a very exciting book haul for you. So a couple months ago, I think around about the beginning of July, half-price books in my city went out of business and they put everything on sale for, I don't remember if it was like 80–90% off. It was somewhere in that range, and it was one of the most insane shopping experiences that I have ever had. I also got interviewed by the news, and then they didn't show it because I don't think I seemed enthusiastic enough because I was so overwhelmed by how many people there were and how many books there were. I got a lot of amazing things, so it was totally worth the stress. And today, I'm going to show you that book haul, and in addition, a couple of kind of the rest of the books that I've accumulated since then. Most of these books are from thrift stores or other used bookstores, if they're not from that half-price books haul. Let me give you a count. Hang on. 36. That's my total number of books. But they were so cheap. I'm just going to go ahead and get started. I have not organized these books because that was also overwhelming. So we're just going to go through them as we find them. I am so excited. I hope you all enjoy this. This is one of my all-time favorite books. And I have to tell you that if you're looking for some good fall reads, this one is perfect. And that is The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. First of all, I have to say that this cover is just lovely. And they worked very hard. Look at the inside. Look at these end papers. And it's got this kind of like aged look to the pages, deckled edges. I just feel like they put a lot of effort into making it seem like an old book when it's not. And if you've read the book, you will understand why. Let me tell you a little bit. These are all going to be brief because we have a lot of books, but let me tell you a little bit about what it's about. So this book is about a famous author named Vida Winter. Vida wrote a famous book of stories, which is famous for, it says, delight and enchantment, and also for the missing 13th tale that is not in the book. As she nears the end of her life, she asks a reporter to come to her house and write the story of her life, and eventually to find out the story of what happened to the 13th tale. So this is really a book that takes place in two different parts, and I would say primarily it is a Gothic novel. It is a mystery. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. If you love Gothic stories, I mean, I think this is going to be perfect. I actually, now that I'm holding it, feel like I need to reread it this fall. So that's number one. This one did come from that half-price books closing sale. Was very excited. I have Birnam Wood by Eleanor Catton. I don't know anything about this book except that I know it is an award winner and that it is fairly new. It is by the author of The Luminaries, which I believe won the Booker Prize. This book says that it is about a guerrilla gardening collective, whatever that means, and that it's a thriller. And I have seen a lot of people read this. I don't know if they liked it, but I know that I am interested in reading. So this is one, if you've read it, let me know if you think that I would like it. And the next two books are books that I have read before and rated 5 stars and need to have on my bookshelves. The first one, they're actually both by the same author. The first one is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This is one of the best haunted house novels. I don't know. I don't really consider this a haunted house novel. I think that it's more primarily a book about weird families and puppet fear. If that makes any sense. If that sounds good to you, check it out. I gave it 5 stars. Grady Hendrix always works for me. He is one of my favorite horror writers. I am excited for his next book that's coming out in January and really excited to have this one. And the other Grady Hendrix book that I picked up was my favorite Grady Hendrix novel, which is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. This is one of my top horror book recommendations. If you, like me, are from the South, and especially if you're from the South during a certain time period, you're definitely going to recognize the characters within this book, these genteel Southern ladies. And yes, it's about vampires, but it's almost more about the Southern ladies, to be honest. It's excellent. So I was really excited to see this one and add it to my shelf. Oh, and also, sorry, I just took the dust jacket off and realized that it has this fun property, like library stamp from the town in the book on the hardcover itself. So that's super fun and I enjoy it. All right, continuing on, I'm still doing books that I have read before in this little stack, and then we'll move on to some that I haven't. And this is another 5-star book for me, and it is Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. I read this earlier this year. It is a sci-fi LGBT kind of forced marriage trope kind of situation book, and it was adorable. It was also a really good sci-fi story in addition to being a great romance, and this is one of my top recommendations, especially if you're looking to break into some more queer literature in terms of the sci-fi fantasy setting. This one's just really good. I really loved it, and I was excited to pick it up. All right, so, and then we have a book that I have read, but which I did slightly pick up because I love the cover so much, and that is A Marvelous Light by Freya Marske. So this series, it is a series. First of all, they have beautiful covers. Love to see that. It is the story of Robin, and Robin is a baronet who, through an administrative mistake, finds himself the liaison to a secret magical society in, I think, Edwardian England. It's really cute. He ends up teaming up with his counterpart from the magical society to solve some mysteries and things like that. It's just, and of course they fall in love. Don't want to leave that out. It's just really good. If you have not read this series, I would highly recommend it. I actually have only read the first one, more to come later, but I am planning to read all of them, and I do really love this cover. All right, and last one that I have in that stack is something to continue my collection of T. Kingfisher books, and that is A House with Good Bones. So this is one of T. Kingfisher's horror novels. She kind of writes both fantasy and horror, and sometimes some stuff that crosses over between the two. Our main character in the story is Sam, and Sam has gone home to see her mother because her brother has told her that her mom seems a little bit off. And when she gets there, wow, is she off. Her mom used to be colorful, but now everything in the house is painted white. And that's not the only thing kind of going on in this story, but it's pretty creepy. I wouldn't say it's super scary, but this would be a great recommendation for fall. And I just really enjoyed it, as I enjoy all of T. Kingfisher's books. I don't know if this is my absolute top recommendation from her scary books, but it is a really good one. Okay, moving on. I have 3 books that are in the same series, but they are not, however, the same edition, which I didn't realize until after I had them all. That is the Eyre Affair by Jasper Fforde. This one I actually found at the Friends of the Library store, and I don't know if I mentioned this one in a previous book haul or not. But then when I was at the half-price book sale, I found Something Rotten and The Well of Lost Plots. So those are books 3 and 4 in the series. I actually don't have book 2, but I'm on the lookout for it. Have I read all of these? No. But I have read the first 3, so whichever one is the 4th one, I don't know which one. That's the one I haven't read yet. These are very literary meta books. The series is called the Thursday Night series, and our main character is a woman named Thursday. And this is a very funny series. In this world, it's very hard to explain, but you can kind of like go inside of books, or books are real, characters are real. It's really hard to explain, and I haven't read these in quite some time, so I don't want to say the wrong thing, but they're very funny. If you like some funny fantasy, probably kind of in the vein of A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or Terry Pratchett or something like that, except of course the setting here is very different from those 2 books, but I think that you would really enjoy these, and I was happy to find them. The next book that I have is one that I haven't read that I know is kind of controversial, and that is Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee. To Kill a Mockingbird is one of my all-time favorite novels. You know, everybody has books that they read for school that they didn't like because you had to read them for school. And I think Mockingbird is one of the few that I can say I read it for school and it did not change my experience whatsoever. I love it so much. And I know that this is a continuation of the story, but I also know that there is some controversy over whether or not she would have actually wanted it to be published. I want to read it and figure out what I think for myself. All right, and then we have a mystery, and that is the Christie Affair. Every Agatha Christie fan knows that there is a period of time in which Agatha Christie, the author, went missing. No one knows what happened. No one knows where she went. She was found. But it's one of these big mysteries that I know there are at least 2 books that try to solve, and then also there's some episodes of Doctor Who, if you've seen those. And this is yet another one that is going to attempt to answer that question. And I see that it was a Reese's Book Club pick. I think I had this on my list when it first came out, and then I ended up never reading it. But if you read it, I would love to hear if you think this is a semi-plausible explanation, or at least a good story, and tell me if you would recommend it. Next, I picked up a book on the strength of knowing the author, and not because I've ever heard of that book, and that is Rules of Civility by Amor Towles. Amor Towles wrote The Lincoln Highway and A Gentleman in Moscow, neither one of which I've actually read yet, but I've heard such good things. I haven't really heard anything about this book. It says, on the last night of 1937, 25-year-old Katie Content is in a second-rate Greenwich Village jazz bar when Tinker Gray, a handsome banker, happens to sit at the neighboring table. This encounter will propel her on a year-long journey toward the upper echelons of New York society, where she will have little to rely upon other than a bracing wit and her own brand of cool nerve. So I love books that are set in the 1930s. I love this cover with the lady on it. I think it's just, and it's got this nice fun little doodle on the interior cover here. I think it's just hopefully going to be really good. It has good reviews. So literary fiction. I'm probably going to read A Gentleman in Moscow first. And then based on what I think of that, I'll go ahead and read some of his other books. Then we have the oldest book that I picked up at Half Price Books in their closing sale, and that is a classic, Death Comes for the Archbishop by Willa Cather. And I think that the most interesting thing about this book is that it's actually a Book of the Month Club book from, wait, let me tell you. It's a Book of the Month edition from 1995. So as you can see, it does have like a little BMC. I don't know if you can't see that down on the spine. But other than that, you would not know. And I also didn't know the Book of the Month did classics, or at least used to do classics. So I feel like their business model might be different these days. But anyway, I've never read this one. I have read, I think is it My Antonia by the same author, and did really enjoy that. This one, I'm not going to lie to you, looks pretty dry. I think I picked it up because I was in the zone, you know, the zone where you're like, well, that looks okay. I'm going to throw it in my cart before somebody else can steal it. But I don't know if I'm actually going to read it. If you've ever read this classic, if you would recommend it to me, let me know down in the comments. Now we are getting into some books that I think are going to be good for this fall. And the first one is Witchmark by CL Polk. CL Polk wrote Even Though I Knew the End, which was my favorite novella that I read last year that I recommend constantly to people because I think it's so wonderful. I know that this is their first novel. It says, in an original world reminiscent of Edwardian England, in the shadow of a world war, cabals of noble families use their unique magical gifts to control the fates of nations, while one man seeks only to live a life of his own. Shadow of World War I, yes. Magical families, England, all these things. I think this sounds really good. I've seen some really positive things about it. This is the first book in a series, because that's what I need to be doing, is starting more series, always, obviously. I think this is going to be good for fall. I'm hopeful it's going to be good for fall, so I'm going to put it on my TBR cart and hope that I can choose it in October or November, because I'm really excited to read it. And then we have another horror book, and that is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. So they also had My Heart is a Chainsaw, and I didn't pick that up because I tried to read My Heart is a Chainsaw once, and I had a really, really hard time with the narrator's voice. If you've read it, I think you know what I mean. So I picked up this one instead because it is a standalone, and I've never read one of his books properly, and I'm really interested in reading it. It says, A tale of revenge, cultural identity, and the cost of breaking from tradition in this latest novel from the Jordan Peele of horror literature, Stephen Graham Jones. That's quite the descriptor there. Blending classic horror and a dramatic narrative with sharp social commentary. So that's something that I really like in my horror novels, is I like something that is going to have something to say besides, well, wasn't that scary? I like that's why I like Grady Hendrix so much, is because I feel like he so often does a good job of blending that in so you don't even know that it's there. But I'm really excited about this one. Still in the fall vibes, we have Little Eve by Catronia Ward. I saw someone, I think it was Heather from Books and Heather, reading this one. I'll link her channel down below, and it looked like it was really, really good. I haven't read any books by this author yet. I know that her famous book is The Last House on Needless Street, which they did not have. But this one also sounds good. It says, on the wind-battered isle of, I don't know how to pronounce that, off the wildest coast of Scotland, a clan prepares to bring about the end of the world and its imminent rebirth. The adder is coming, and one of their number will inherit its powers. They all want the honor, but young Eve is willing to do anything for the distinction. A reckoning beyond her imagination begins when Chief Inspector Black arrives to investigate a brutal murder, and their sacred ceremony goes terribly wrong. And soon, all the secrets of I tried it. I'm not going to try it. Alt Nahara, we're going to say, will be uncovered. I've heard good things. I really want to read a book by this author. I think it's going to be perfect for this spooky season. And then this is the last scary book in this stack, and that is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. I really hope I said his name right. This one I have heard kind of mixed things about. I've seen some people who really, really loved it, and I've seen some people who absolutely hated it. But I am willing to find out for myself, especially because I saw that he has a new book coming out soon. And this one says, Mallory Quinn is fresh out of rehab when she takes a job babysitting Ted and Carolyn Maxwell's 5-year-old son. She immediately bonds with the sweet boy who is never without his sketchbook. One day he draws something different, a man dragging a woman's lifeless body. Then his stick figures evolve into increasingly sophisticated sketches depicting one disturbing scene after another. Is he troubled, or is he channeling forces he cannot understand? Ooh, that sounds so good. And I did know, I didn't want to read this in Kindle form like I do a lot of books, because it does have drawings. You can see there's one all the way through. So I am looking forward to that. I would really love to hear, if you have an opinion about this one, what your kind of thoughts were. But I'm definitely putting it on my TBR one of these months coming soon. Gotta move again. I'm sitting on the hard floor in here, and it's a choice. All right. So then we have some other books that are not scary books. The first one is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. I feel like every time I go to Half Price Books, they have about 40 copies of this book. But I personally really, really love his YouTube channel with his brother John, obviously. And I watch it all the time. And I've read John's books, but I've never read this book from Hank. And it's supposed to be kind of a, I think, slightly humorous science fiction story. And it has a lot of, just flipping through it, I can see it has a lot of kind of non-traditional structure, with chats and emails and stuff like that inside the book. But I mean, I just know I'm gonna love it because I love Hank Green, and I was excited to pick this one up. How many times am I gonna say I was excited to pick this one up? So many more. So as you know, if you have been here before, I'm working my way through the Expanse series. And in addition to working my way through the series, which I am currently on book 4, I am also trying to purchase all of the soft covers when I see them in a used bookstore. So I did find this one at a used bookstore, and I'm a little ahead of myself because this is Leviathan Falls, which is the final book in the series. So I have books 1 through 4, and now I have book 9. If you haven't read The Expanse, you really should. It's a really great sci-fi, space opera, popcorny series. I really love it. Hopefully I'm going to keep loving it long enough to get to book 9 because I own it now. We'll see. There's that. Next, I found a novella that I'm really excited to read, and that is The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo. So I recently read the 5th book in this series, which you could read as a standalone. I think that they're probably all separate stories, but I wanted to go back to the beginning after reading that because I enjoyed it quite a bit, and read the 1st book, which I know has won some awards and everyone says is just really good. So I was kind of shocked to see it at the used bookstore, to be honest. If you read a lot of sci-fi fantasy, you know that you will see the super popular books a lot. But beyond that, maybe some like books from the 80s and 90s with cheesy covers. But people who read fantasy and sci-fi are collectors and they do not get rid of stuff. So I was pretty excited to find this one and I'm looking forward to reading it soon. Then I picked up a book that I have literally never heard of, but I liked the cover and I have read something by the author before, and that is Radiance by Catherine M. Valente. So this book was published in 2015, which is probably why I haven't heard of it, because you know how it is. If you're in this space, you're in the book media space, you only hear about the new stuff. So this is, it says on the back, Radiance is a deco punk pulp sci-fi alt history space opera mystery set in a Hollywood and solar system very different from our own. I don't know. That sounds like a lot, so I bought it. The book that I have read from her is The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making. So I think Catherine Valente is just a really inventive author. So I am kind of looking forward to seeing, you know, what the heck this is. It has some stuff in here that looks like movie scripts, like, I don't know. If you read this, let me know. I haven't seen anyone who did, and I have not looked up reviews, so I have no idea if it's supposed to be good or not, but I added it to my cart because it was very cheap. And then as I claim that I am going to be working my way through that New York Times top 100 books of the 21st century so far, I do pick them up when I find them for a good deal, and the one that I picked up in this stack is Fun Home by Alison Bechdel. So this is a graphic novel. I don't read a lot of graphic novels, but you know, every once in a while I will pick one up. This is the Fun Home, now a Broadway musical cover. I have also not seen the musical, although I have, I think, played for a few things where people were performing numbers from this show, and they seemed like they were fun. So anyway, I'm looking forward to reading this. This is about a girl whose parents own a funeral home, which is the Fun Home in the title. And I know that it's going to be very bittersweet and funny and touching all at the same time. So I am definitely looking forward to sinking my teeth into this one sometime soon. Right now we have another first book in a series, and that is The Poppy War by RF Kuang. This one's kind of tall. It's hard to get in there. You know anything about me, you know that I absolutely love Babel by Rebecca Kuang, right? I think that it was my favorite book last year, one of my favorite fantasy books. I can see all the things people don't like about it, but it doesn't keep it from just being a book that I cannot stop thinking about. And The Poppy War is her earlier trilogy that I have seen people say that they actually like better than Babel. I know that it's going to be not your typical magical school story, which is how the first chapter that I read starts out. It says, when Rin aced the Keiju, the empire-wide test to find the most talented youth to study at the academy, it was a shock to everyone. It's surprising that she got into Sinigard, the most elite military school in the Nikara Empire. But surprises aren't always good. So I know that this is about a war, obviously, based on the title, and I know it's supposed to be very, very dark. And I'm kind of here for it. I actually own the second book too, but I own it in paperback. So now I guess I've committed myself to rebuying that in hardback if I like this, which I fully expect that I will. I've been kind of avoiding it, I think, because I'm worried it's going to be devastating, but now I have no excuse because I have it on my physical TBR cart, which is a thing that I plan to prioritize in the coming months. And then last one in this stack is The Devil and the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. So this is Stuart Turton's second novel. I have read The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, which was a 4-star book for me, and I have read The Last Summer at the End of the World, which was a 5-star book for me. So this is the one I haven't read. I immediately am obsessed with it due to the fact that it has a ship's map on the inside cover. That's fun. But anyway, I know it's another mystery story, but this one is set in 1634. It says Samuel Pepys, the world's greatest detective, is being transported to Amsterdam to be executed for a crime he may or may not have committed. Traveling with him is his loyal bodyguard who's determined to prove his friend innocent. Among the other guests is Sarah Wessel, a noblewoman with a secret. But no sooner is their ship out to sea than devilry begins to blight the voyage. That's all I'm going to read. I know I'm going to love this. This was actually on my TBR last month. I didn't get to it. Book had to go back to the library, but now I own it. So I have no excuse, right? It's just so pretty too. I love the shiny green. So let's go on to one of my all-time favorite books that I think everyone should read, and that is I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. Would I have liked a cover that did not have a quote from J.K. Rowling all across the front? Sure. But, you know, half-price book sale, beggars can't be choosers, and this is what we have until I get something better. I Capture the Castle tells the story of 17-year-old Cassandra and her family, who live in not so genteel poverty in a ramshackle Old English castle. Her journals candidly chronicle the great changes that take place within the castle's walls and her own first descent into love. So this is really, I think, one of the great coming-of-age stories. I think that if you're someone who is a fan of books like Anne of Green Gables, or maybe A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, those kind of young girl coming-of-age stories, I think that you would absolutely adore this book. It is so charming. It is so cute. It's got a lot of heart. A lot of things happen in here. I haven't read it for years. Probably need to reread it again, but it's just really excellent. Another book that is a favorite of mine that I didn't own that I picked up is The Shadow of the Wind. This isn't the most exciting cover, but it is the one that I found. This book is really hard to explain. It's just very twisty, very turny. It's kind of a love it or hate it book. I loved it. Your mileage may vary, but was really excited to own a copy. And this whole stack, by the way, is books that I've read before, and then we'll get to some that I haven't. And this one is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. So I feel like this book started the trend of the neurodivergent main character who learns how to be herself, learns a lot of life lessons, maybe falls in love. You know what I'm talking about. There are so many books like this now, but I feel like this one started it, and I think it's the best one. I really loved it. I don't know how well it's going to hold up for me on a reread just because I've read so many books that imitate it since then, and so many of them I think are not good. So I'm hoping I'm still going to think this is good when I reread it, but I was excited to pick it up. And then we have a literary post-apocalyptic, I don't know if that's the right word for it, but I will say yes, a literary sci-fi. And that is The Dreamers by Karen Thompson Walker. This is a 5-star read for me. It is about a mysterious illness that causes people to fall asleep and not be able to wake up. And we find then that they are dreaming very intently. It's definitely on the literary side. It's not a action-packed thriller or anything like that. It's very much about the characters. The blurb on the front is from Emily St. John Mandel, who wrote Station 11. I think that's very appropriate. But I actually just really love this book. And I don't see it recommended a lot anymore. So if you're interested in the genre, post-apocalyptic books, mysterious illness books, similar in a way, I think, to Stephen King's Sleeping Beauties, but this is better, that book. I did not like that book. Glad to find that one. And then I picked up a book that is just because it is super nostalgic for me, and that is The Cat Who Knew a Cardinal by Lillian Jackson Braun. Where are my The Cat Who series girlies? I know you exist. I know I wasn't the only person who read every single one of these books. This one's really short, by the way. I don't remember it being that short when I read it before. But we've got Quillian, our mustachioed, reluctant detective. We have his 2 Siamese cats, Coco and Yum Yum. They are going to solve some mysteries. And it's always a fun time. I feel like this kind of is from before we really had cozy mysteries the way that we have cozy mysteries now. And I think I preferred them before they got as over the top and ridiculous as I think they now are, but I do still sometimes like a cozy mystery. No shade to that. But does anybody else love these? Because I was obsessed with them and I feel like I need to own them all now. We are down to the last stack. And we are going to start with Over the Woodward Wall by A. Deborah Baker. So I picked this up. I didn't know what it was. I looked at the back And the back is just all, it says praise for Shauna Maguire, which is, I was like, that's weird. Does she have another pen name? Because she also writes as Mira A. Grant. And indeed, this is a Shauna Maguire book. So I just picked it up based on the strength of the fact that I love Shauna Maguire. But I did realize after picking this up that it's actually the book that is mentioned in her, I don't remember the series name, but the series that starts with Middle Game, that's what this book is from, according to the Goodreads reviews that I looked up. So it's basically kind of a fairy tale. It looks like a little bit of a faux Narnia situation. If you've read it on its own and you think it's worth it, let me know. But I'm probably going to hold off until I've picked that one up too. Okay, and then we have a book that I was very excited about, and that is Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. This book has been on my TBR for a while. This is actually Andrew Joseph White's first novel, I think. They also wrote The Spirit Bears Its Teeth, which is a kind of medical horror, Victorian, Gothic, fantasy situation, young adult book that I read last year that was in my top 10 of the year. So I definitely wanted to read their first book. I would have bought it, honestly, even if I didn't like it that much, just because I think that the covers of these books are just so, like, the art style is so striking, I think. And they're just, like, really interesting, and I'm sure it's going to be great. So I was really excited for this one. Are you keeping track of how many times I said I was really excited to find this one? I think we're up to, like, 100. Okay. Now we have the second book in a series that I already talked about, and that is A Restless Truth by Freya Marske, which goes along with A Marvelous Light. Aren't those covers gorgeous? Yes. In this one, we're actually following two different characters from in the first book. I have not read it, but I am really excited to add it to my list now. I think it sounds really cozy. The first book I always recommend for cozy fantasy, so I think this one's going to be amazing too. So excited. Love this cover. At the front, it just says, magic, murder, shipboard romance. Do you need more? Do you? Okay. It says, Maud Blythe has always longed for adventure. She expected plenty of it when she volunteered to serve as an old lady's companion on an ocean liner in order to help her beloved older brother unravel a magical conspiracy that began generations ago. What she didn't expect was for the old lady in question to turn up dead on the first day of the voyage. So, sounds good. I'm excited to read it. Here's one that I am so excited to read this fall, and that is The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I obviously had a great Grady Hendrix time, I guess, when I was looking for books. So Grady Hendrix, like I said, is probably my favorite current horror author. This is, I think, the only one of his big novels that I haven't read. I think he's got one that he wrote early on that I have not read yet, but this is of the ones that I feel like everyone's read, this is the only one that I have not personally read. So I am excited to be able to sink my teeth into this fall. And it says, in horror movies, the final girl is the one who's left standing when the credits roll. The one who fought back, defeated the killer, and avenged her friends. The one who emerges bloodied but victorious, but after the sirens fade and the audience moves on, what happens to her? So the idea is that our main character, she is a final girl, and she is in a support group with these other girls who were also final girls, which is very self-aware in a very Grady Hendrix kind of way. There's actually, I think Riley Sager has a book that might follow this kind of idea a little bit too, which I did not like nearly as much. And that's probably the reason why I have never read this book. But it is not fair to compare those two people because Grady Hendrix is the best. And I'm excited to read this one this fall. Okay, and then finally, we have two books that are from the same series, so I better like them, right? And that series is, I don't know what the series name is, but the first book is The Jasmine Throne. It's by Tasha Suri. So this is, I think, an Indian-inspired fantasy series that I have heard nothing but good things about. I don't know that I have seen anyone say anything bad about it, and I've been meaning to read it, and I was really excited because when I found it, someone had also sold back the second book, which is The Oleander Sword. So now I have both of these books. So hopefully I'm going to like the first book, but I think I will. And I know that the third book in the series is coming out this fall. So maybe it might be something that I can get into and I can get through these and maybe get caught up and finish something. You never know. The first book is 500 pages long. I have said before that I am a little bit obsessed with these like super floppy Orbit paperbacks. These have the same kind of paper that they use in the Expanse paperbacks. They're also by the same publisher, Orbit, which I think I said. So I just think they feel really nice and they're kind of chunky, but I think these are going to be really good. If you've read them, let me know, but I'm really looking for some new fantasy to sink my teeth into because I've been having a lot of disappointments lately, so hoping to find something good. And with that, we have made it to the end of my, I would say, fairly epic half-price books closing book haul. Did I buy too many books? Yeah, no, I did. Definitely. So now all I need is a new bookshelf to put them in because I have run out of room. More coming later with that. If you have made it this far, thank you so much for visiting my channel and watching. I would love if you would subscribe. If you would like, leave a comment down below. I would love to hear if you have read any of the books that I went through in this book haul and what you thought about them, because I'm a little bit overwhelmed with where to start. I am not going to lie. And with that, I hope that you all have a fantastic week, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.